We know that the St. Louis Cardinals are going to make some deals this offseason. So how can the team benefit from finding deals for veterans like Nolan Arenado, Sonny Gray, and Wilson Contreras? We'll break it down on today's episode of Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafron, a former national radio sports anchor, born and raised in St. Louis and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. I want to thank all of our everydayers for being here with us, not only throughout the regular season, but now here in the offseason when things are going to get real goofy for this team. And for those of you who are new, welcome in. We hope you enjoy the content. This is a show that serves Cardinal Nation and gives you all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode being brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the app today. All right, on today's episode, we are going to be rummaging through a lot of the discussions that have taken place over the last week about trade proposals involving the Cardinals, including yesterday's topic of dealing away from the catching depth. We'll also reminisce about one of the all-time great Cardinal moments, which took place on the state 40 years ago in the NLCS involving the Wizard. But we start today with a subject that I think maybe we sometimes take for granted that will just kind of happen. Even though it could be more difficult than we realize, and that's the possible trades of veterans like Nolan Arenado, Sonny Gray, and Wilson Contreras. They got the no-trade clauses, and what the benefits of moving them could mean for this team in 2025. To help us through this today is our good buddy Thomas Gauvain from redbirdrant.com. You can follow him on X at Thomas Gauvain, as well as read his work at redbirdrant.com. Thomas, how are things, and do you have all of your spooky Halloween decorations up yet like I do behind me here in the studio?
I'm doing well, thank you. No, so my family's more of like a fall decorations. We'll do like a bale of hay, a couple of pumpkins out front, but we're not really Halloween as much as we are fall.
Okay, so you're not as scary as my house, where we try to literally build haunted houses out of our places that we live in. You guys keep it a little more tame, yeah?
Yeah, we do. There's a house we drive by. It's like early grocery stores around our neighborhood, and they've got like real. It's actually like scary. It's not just like the spooky. Like they've got trash bags hanging from trees, that kind of stuff. It's pretty freaky.
We went on a walk yesterday with the pup, and there was one that had like a body hanging upside down. From the tree. Like, that's a little dark, but okay.
Yeah.
All right. A little fun. No big deal. We're not here to judge you. What we are here to judge is the St. Louis Cardinals, their roster, and what changes could be made here in the offseason. And it could be fun. maybe not, depending on your perspective. As the Cardinals roster changes that might happen this offseason and the possibilities of saying goodbye to Nolan Arenado, Sonny Gray, and Wilson Contreras. So let's start with who I believe is the most likely to get moved, and that's Nolan Arenado. Now, if Nato gets traded, we certainly will miss, the great defense down there at third base. Still elite level. It's still a joy for a guy like me who enjoys great defense to watch what he does and how easy he makes things look over there at the hot corner. I think it's still elite level stuff. But the offense, it's a problem. It dipped yet again in 2025. Of course, he had the injuries, but his OPS fell to 87, which is the third lowest of his career, only behind his rookie season and then the COVID year of 2020. So in your eyes, what are the benefits of moving someone like Arenado, and how difficult do you think this is going to be, considering, it's the same issues we had last offseason, where there's probably a limited amount of teams that he's going to be willing to go to, and he's still got 2 years remaining on his deal, which I guess you could look at as a good thing and a bad thing. Before it was 3 years and it was more money. Now things are getting a little cheaper over the last couple of years, and it's only 2 years. So what are your thoughts on an Arenado deal and how it could help the Cardinals?
You start with the payroll. It takes a lot of the financial stress off the team. They'll have to kick in $15-20 million. I asked I'm going to butcher his last name, Dan Szymborski over at Fangraphs, what his value actually is, and it's pretty close to what his contract is. He's at 2 years, $41 million, $42 million. I believe the Rockies are still kicking in some money for that, and we've got deferments, so it's not wildly expensive like it's sometimes being portrayed, but there's the financial relief there if you move him. You open up some playing time. I know next year it's not as much of a runway year as this year was. It's more of like a get out there and perform. We're kind of tired of waiting here. But
Yeah.
you open up some playing time for Nolan Gorman. JJ Weatherholt could be a guy that we see if he breaks camp with the major league team, starting over at third base. So it's the financial, it's the playing time. You lose some of the defense, especially if you go to Nolan Gorman. But he started warming up towards the end of the year over at third base once he had some consistent playing time there too.
Yeah, and that was one thing about Gorman was that, we've been moving, it's kind of like with Walker, you've been moving him around, trying to get him to learn a bunch of new things, like learning how to play second base. And then you just want him to be as good as he was offensively, which, we think that they should be able to pull that off, but it appears that it was a little more difficult than we thought. And you're right. At first it was more like the throwing errors and trying to get used to throwing it across the diamond to different arm angles and stuff that Gorman would have to go through over at third base. But yeah, after like a week or two while Arenado was out, Gorman started to get comfortable and, he looked better at third base than I've ever seen him look at second base. Like it never really seemed like a very smooth transition for him. Gorman getting bat on ball is really the biggest problem with him, and trying to utilize that power that he's got over at third base. You brought up JJ Weatherholt. I feel like it's been a little weird that they've kept him at shortstop as long as they have in the minors. I know they started moving him around a little bit this past year. Do you feel like third base is the spot for him? I'm going to make you get out your crystal ball here, Thomas. All right. I apologize for this, but who do you see as the starting third baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals on opening day in 2026? If it's not Nolan Arenado, if a deal is made, who do you got down there at the hot corner?
Nolan Gorman. I know we've seen JJ Weatherholt play shortstop, like you said, but I think the idea behind there is if you can play shortstop, you can play anywhere else. So let's give him the hardest position, have him figure that out. I think it's going to be Nolan Gorman at third base on opening day. We need some power from the left side. We need some power, period, and he can provide that pretty easily. You have the strikeouts. He showed a penchant for getting more walks last year. His strikeout rate was slightly down year over year. He had, at one point, I think he was like a 27% strikeout rate. He lost some power there, but I think it's got to be Nolan Gorman, and you've got to live with the defense and the errors here and there.
Yeah, and you just got to hope that he'll be better knowing that he's got a role. Like hearing Chaim Bloom talk about like, well, I'm not sure if, he was that comfortable, it was never his job. He never had a job, he was never the starting second baseman. You had Donovan over there. He was never the starting third baseman. He was just kind of a dude floating around. And I wonder, because I get the vibe from Nolan Gorman that he's somebody that needs confidence, like that lacks a little bit of confidence and can be down on himself, maybe a little too harsh. And I don't know him. I've never spoken to him. It's just a vibe I get. And I wonder if he gets this, the confidence that comes with like, you're our starting third baseman, opening day. This is your job. Like, have at it, go eat, buddy. I wonder if that'll do something for him, just confidence wise, and help him be more of the player that we all hoped he would be as he was coming up through the system. So I agree with you. I think it will be Nolan Gorman over at third base. I know there are fans that are going to be like, trade Gorman, he sucks. And this, I just don't see that happening. It's the same thing. I don't see them giving up on Jordan Walker. I just don't see that. They're both very young. No. They've put a lot of time into these two guys, expecting them to be better players. And I just don't think pulling the plug on either one of them at this point is going to do much. Plus, you're selling low if you trade one of those guys at this point in their careers. Like, what are you going to get in return for them at this point? There can't be a whole lot. So I feel like that's the best possible route I would like to see on opening day. Gorman, Wynn, and JJ at second. And I want to see Donovan in left field. Hot take. I don't need Lars Nootbaar on my team anymore. He can move on.
I don't know if that's a hot take anymore. I think at this point that's just a lukewarm.
Yeah, I was trying to be a little facetious there because I feel like people know by now that I'm not the biggest Nootbaar fan, and it's I just am ready to turn the page on that whole thing. So all right, so we've got third base figured out why moving Arenado would be good. Next name on the list will be Sonny Gray. Some thoughts on how a trade involving him could benefit the Cardinals as well. That's coming up next here on Locked On Cardinals. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, your properties, your investments. I mean, I don't blame you for that. And when you don't have the full picture, though, here's the problem. You can end up leaving money on the table, and you don't want that. You want money in your pockets, in your wallet, in your account, wherever you keep it, under your mattress. It's not my business to know where your money is, but you want as much of it as you possibly can. And that's why Monarch Money exists. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. So if you've put off organizing your finances, don't feel shame about that. Monarch is here for you. They're going to do the heavy lifting. They can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without you ever even touching a spreadsheet. You'll be able to maximize investments. You can increase your savings rate. You can easily review your finances with your partner or your financial advisor. It's just going to help you keep a clear view of what your financial health is week to week and, of course, long-term as well. So don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code, one word, LOCKEDONMLB. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you enjoy daily Cardinals content, you can follow the podcast on X at @LO_Cardinals. We're also available on your other social medias like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, as well as Locked On Cardinals. Thomas Gauvain from Redbird Rants with us here today. Sonny Gray, very expensive next season, Thomas, $35 million. And, of course, you've also got the money that you got to buy him out if you don't do the option the year after that. Part of that deal that he signed with the Cardinals 2 years ago, which when he signed it, we were all like, yay, it's real cheap early on and we'll be able to add more pieces. And then Lance Lynn and, Kyle Gibson showed up and then we all go, oh, boo, terrible idea. Now, Sonny he's been the top pitcher on this team for the 2 years he's been here. Many believe, though, he hasn't lived up to expectations. They thought he was going to be better than what he's been. Sonny admitted that he might have to look at a trade this offseason, given the Cardinals' current direction, his age, his desire to play for a contender and win. I personally don't think it's going to be that difficult to move Sonny if he's cool with waiving his no trade clause, because everybody wants pitching. Larger market teams, I don't think they're going to have a whole lot of issues with bringing Sonny on for one guaranteed year remaining and then that club option for 2027. But being that the Cardinals are also a team that needs starting pitching, how could trading away your best guy actually benefit your team in 2026?
Yeah, I think that Sonny Gray's numbers are a little bit deceptive. He was still top 10 in Ks per nine, which is something that teams love to see right now in this era. He pitched was it 200 innings that he got to? 180, still solid amount. He pitched every start he could. If he's traded, that leaves you with Michael McGreevy and Matthew Liberatore as your two guaranteed, or can put them in the rotation guys. Andre Palante gets a little bit tricky. Do you want him? Do you not want him? I don't want him in the rotation. So you're filling three spots there if Sonny Gray's traded. We'll have to dip into the free agent market. You look at names like Zach Littell, Jose Quintana. I think there's a way we could swing a Zach Gallen deal if it's like a 1 year prove it type thing with the second year option. Then you have to look at Heimblum to trade one of these guys that we've been talking about for a starting pitcher. Lars Nootbaar, Alec Burleson, Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan. And I think that's how you fill out this rotation. A couple of cheaper veteran signings, a trade for a starter, and then use your internal guys from there.
Yeah, it certainly would open up, depending on how much you would have to eat, which I can't assume that it's going to be a ton. But if you have to eat some money, so be it. You're already supposed to be paying $35 million anyway, so not the end of the world. But you mentioned some of those free agents. It's funny because you bring up Zach Gallen, and it's shocking to me that he's 30 years old now. Like, it doesn't seem like he at the age of 30 yet. He should still be in his mid-20s, but he is. There are some other names that that have been kicked around. You mentioned Zach Littell, which was somebody that got traded from the Rays, where Heim used to be. He ended up going to the Reds and pitched fairly well for these. And this is the guy, like, they're not going to go find some superstar. That's not where the money is going to go. You've got other names like Walker Buehler. Dustin May is a guy that I have been infatuated with. If the dude could ever stay healthy, like he's just nasty, and he's just got to figure out how to reel it in. He feels like he's always coming back from an injury, which makes things very difficult for him. Nick Martinez, also a former Reds guy. How about nasty Nestor Cortez from the left side? That's a guy. Griffin Canning.
Jordan Montgomery. People aren't going to like it. Jordan Montgomery, maybe?
Yeah, he's going to be looking to, put his name back out there as somebody who can still do it. He hasn't been healthy since that World Series run with the Rangers when he was amazing. So there's a lot of possibilities there. The key is trying to talk these guys into coming to St. Louis on those kind of deals. So we'll see what the market has to offer for them. But there are certainly a number of different guys and routes they could go to bring in. Obviously, we want to see Quinn Matthews is somebody that I want to see him at the major league level next year at some point. So there are some possibilities. But as you mentioned, there's other trades that they could make. Could you flip a Lars Nootbaar or an Alec Burleson for a capable starter? I would assume you'd get more back from Burley than you would Noot, but whatever. But you got to fill these roles somehow, and I had people who were actually, sending me Miles Michaelis, and I'm like, no, stop it. Stop it. This Mo's not in charge anymore. We got to turn the page from all the Mo stuff and move on.
We've got to hope Heim is smarter than that, right?
Yeah. And I see, and the sad part is, Thomas, I see why, if his name wasn't Miles Michaelis and he wasn't on your team,
I know.
Why want somebody that, that can handle 32 starts. But yeah, no. Stop it. Let's move on to Wilson Contreras. Probably the least likely to get moved in this scenario. We've seen the Mets pop up as a team that might be looking for a first baseman if Pete Alonso opts out, which we all think he probably will. And the Mets seem to kind of want to redo some things. So that's a team that maybe would be after Wilson Contreras. Willie helped himself out by playing very good at first base this year in his first year. If Willie was moved, how could that impact things for the Cardinals in a positive way, even though odds are he's probably sticking around?
The positive is similar to third base with Arenado. You free up some time. Alec Burleson can become full-time first baseman. Ivan Herrera could get some time in there as well if it's a left-handed pitcher. You get some playing time there for who was probably your best hitter. The two best hitters in Burleson and Herrera last year. I would miss Contreras. Out of those three guys, I think he's the one I'd want to keep the most. His fire is there, his intensity. He seems to really want to be in the city and with the team, which helps quite a bit, especially with all the transitions. You need some consistency, and he could provide that. He's exciting. He's fiery. He's the player that every other team hates, and you want those kinds of guys on your team.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If you're going to open up that spot, that's something you mentioned. Herrera is a guy that I feel like, if it did happen, that you could open up a spot there, because I just don't believe in Ivan Herrera as a catcher. I've seen enough where I don't care if Yachty's working with him this offseason. I just don't think there's a way to make him a good enough catcher where you're going to want him starting all the time behind the plate. I can't see it. But because he's an athletic enough guy, I think doing what you did with Wilson, moving him over to first base, makes a lot of sense. You can also move him into the corner outfield when you need him to for certain games and whatnot. Obviously, the DH role is always open as well. So, it doesn't seem like it's something that'll probably happen. It's probably got to be a really good deal for Willie to ever want to get out of St. Louis because, like you mentioned, he loves it here. He really does want to be around this team and be a part of this renovation they got going on. And I got no issues with him sticking around. And perhaps he's even better at first base coming up in 2026 after getting 1 year under his belt. The Cardinals do have catching depth. I want to get Thomas's thoughts on who he thinks the Cardinals should or could move from that group of players that they got, where they've got like 5 guys to choose from right now. We'll see what he has to say about that. Plus, we'll take a trip down happy memory lane. Something big happened on this stage a few years back. We'll talk about it next, coming up on Locked On Cardinals. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives you so many different ways to to play and have fun. You can build those parlays. You can do the player props, which I do as a fantasy football guy, and you can follow the live lines during games. You want to do that as well. You had 2 Monday Night Football games last night. Both of them were quite entertaining. I had Bijan Robinson in my league, so him going bonkers last night against Buffalo was awesome. Of course, you had a great game between the Bears and Washington, which was a whole lot of fun. This Thursday Night Football game, it'll be the Steelers and my former heartthrob Aaron Rodgers. He used to quarterback my Green Bay Packers. He goes into Cincinnati as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers to take on Joe Flacco and the Bengals, who thought that was going to be a thing ever. So the Steelers have a surprising 4-1 team and have kind of had the Bengals numbers over the years. So that might be something you want to look at. Whether you're a casual fan, you're diving into the stats, FanDuel's going to make watching football much more exciting for you when you got a little something riding on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until the World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis, but on a national scale with MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcast. Thomas Gauvain from RedbirdRancher.com joining us here today. Talking catching now. The Cardinals currently have some pretty decent catching depth. I don't know what it looks like around the rest of the league, but looking at what the Cardinals have, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. If you include Ivan Herrera as a catcher, which apparently he's going to try it again in the offseason. They're going to see if they can get this whole throwing thing worked out. But you would have Herrera. You've had Pedro Pages, which obviously has been a very capable MLB catcher. Joel Pozo is still on this roster. There's this talk, Derek Gould talked about, signing him into a different type of deal, which would put him in the running to, he doesn't necessarily have to start at the major league level, but you've also got Jimmy Crooks, who we saw get called up at the end of the year. And then you've got your two top catching prospects, and Leonardo Bernal and Raydel Rodriguez, both very young men. Rodriguez only 18 years old. Bernal's 21, hasn't even played at AAA yet. But Thomas, we're going to make life difficult for you. If you got to move one of them, which one are you moving, knowing that the better the player, the better the return? Because yesterday I was like, well, Pages makes the most sense to move on from, but what the hell are you going to get for Pedro Pages in this day and age? So who do you think it'll be? Who's your choice out of that grouping?
I'm going to pick two. I don't know how many teams have 4 catchers on their 40-man roster. It's the Cardinals and probably nobody else. So I think
remember when we would carry 3 at the same time for fun? That was cool.
Yeah, I think it's Pedro Pages. You're not getting much. Maybe we swing a reliever deal. You think like the Paul DeYoung deal a few years ago. Find some AAA reliever, someone who can become something hopefully, and you just pray and send him packing. And I think the other guy might be Leonardo Bernal. I know that he's got a lot of hype behind him. He's probably defense first. But I would love to see a Jimmy Crooks, Ivan Herrera pairing behind the plate, Joel Pozo as the AAA depth guy. Bernal could get you a pretty serious pitching prospect or a pitcher even potentially for a team that's kind of in a little bit more of a rebuild than the Cardinals are, and they have more patience. So I think that he carries the high return value that Pedro Pages doesn't. Pages carries the let's get him off the roster and clear space value that we're all looking for right now too.
Yeah, and it's that we don't like talking about Pedro in a bad light, because he's obviously been somebody that the pitching staff has been very comfortable with. He seems to be one of those really good locker room guys. People seem to enjoy having him around, and you see his enthusiasm on the bench and whatnot. Part of this kind of ties in with the Yadier Molina stuff because if he does become a member of Ali's staff, which has been something that's been rumored recently, that he'll be able to work with these catchers, and maybe he can give you some insight as which ones he would want to keep around and which ones are actually worthy of sticking with. What is your faith in Ivan Herrera as a catcher? Obviously, mine is not very. I don't have a lot there. Are you trusting in? Do you think there's still something there with Ivan behind the plate?
I think so. I don't know. If he's still pretty young, I don't have the injury concerns with him behind the plate. Both of his injuries this past year were not while he was actually catching. It was on base paths. And so I don't know if the injury concern is there for me. it's his arm strength that he's got to boost back up. A couple of years ago, he was at least league average. His pop time could use a little bit of help too. And those are things you can work on. It's not like he is awful at framing, which also is a thing that you don't need anymore with ABS for the most part. At least you need it, but to a lesser extent. So as long as it's like strength building or reaction times, those can be fixed pretty easily throughout an off season, I would imagine. I still believe in him to catch 120 games. No, don't throw him back there. But maybe like a nice 75, 80 game count would be good for him. Jimmy Crooks comes in, fills in the rest.
Yeah,
Nice
and the dynamic that you have there with Ivan from the right side and Jimmy from the left side is something, obviously, if we're talking matchups, that you love to have that flexibility there as well. So I said something similar yesterday. I was like, in a perfect world, Ivan becomes a really good catcher and at least a capable enough major league catcher where it's him and Crooks behind the plate, and life is good. You don't have to worry about anything else with Bernal and Rodriguez at this time, unless, like you said, you want to move one of them and use that as ammunition to go get you some more starting pitching, which we know that the Cardinals are in desperate need of, just because not only because of revamping everything, but the injuries that took their toll on some of the starting pitching depth that they had at the minor league level last year. All right, ending on a happy thought. On this date, 1985, Ozzie Smith, the Wizard of Oz, hits the famous walk-off solo home run against Tom Niedenfuer and the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Go Crazy Folks, Go Crazy call from Jack Buck obviously is immortal and is synonymous with Cardinals baseball. As someone who was not yet alive, Thomas, what are your thoughts? Because, you're living through and it's sad because it's not really the dark times of Cardinal baseball. Like, there have been worse times than what is happening right now, but it's currently, at a down point. But you go back and you see that crowd and that energy and what that home run was about. When you go back and look at the footage, what goes through your mind? What are your thoughts when you see it?
Man, I love it. And I think that's one of the best parts about being a Cardinal fan, because no matter what age you are, maybe if you're 3 years old, my son probably doesn't have any positive memories of the Cardinals, but no matter what age you are, you can find your era and you can find the excitement. You can find the players that are in the Hall of Fame. You can find world championships. That's what's awesome about being a Cardinal fan. You have the history to rely on, even when it's a little bit of a dry spell for the team like we're in right now. It's great to look back on all the players. I've started the last couple of years picking up on some of the Cardinals history that I missed the first 6 years of my life. And it's exciting to look back and see all the things that made the franchise and the organization what they are today.
Yeah, and it also reminds you just how disappointing it is to see such emptiness at Busch Stadium right now.
At least it's not the 70s, though. It could be worse. We're not in the 1970s anymore.
It could be worse, and clearly they're doing things to try to patch this thing back together and get it moving in the right direction and get this train back on the tracks. You were around for the David Freese home run, which I know it's World Series versus NL Championship Series when we talk about these home runs, but those are the two that really stick out in my mind as some of the biggest ones. I know we've had other huge ones, Yachty's against the Mets and, Jack Clark in that same series against the Dodgers was another big one. But there's been a lot of huge home runs, but, obviously David Freese is probably the biggest one for you in your lifetime, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Although I remember, I think it was regular season, David Eckstein hit the grand slam out to left field. He faked a bunt, didn't he? And then crushed it out to left field. That home run sticks. I know it's not postseason, but that's one of the home runs I think of.
It was the walk-off grand slam. We were all at that game. We had like a family reunion at the game where we all had like jerseys on with our age because we were celebrating like the August birthdays. And so all of our names are on the back or whatever. And I specifically remember my father crying in joy, tears of joy at a regular season walk-off grand slam by little David Eckstein. Anytime the little guy hits a home run, everybody just feels good, right?
Yeah. Short Kings, I think that's what they're called, right?
Yeah, it was, seeing Ozzie hit that one, and that was the big thing about it was that, like, they had just flashed the stat on the screen, too. It was like, has not homered from the left side of the plate in, like, 2 billion at-bats. It was like, he never is going to do it. It's not going to happen. Forget it. Oh, there it goes. And it was a crazy, crazy moment, hence the Go Crazy Folks, call from the immortal Jack Buck. All right, so there you go. Leaving on a happy thought. Once again, Thomas, where can the folks follow you when it comes to X and anything else you're working on for redwoodrants.com in the future?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter X at Thomas Gauvain, Redwood Rants. You can find my author page there. I just had something. It's either going up soon or just went up about. Ironically, today is the day that the Cardinals fired Mike Schilt for philosophical differences, just one day after he retired as well. So I've got something up there. Working on some offseason, like free agent type stuff too, just the names to keep an eye on.
We love it. We love it. And we'll be here with Thomas throughout the entire offseason and have him on the show as much as he'll be available and be able to come on and join us. So thanks again, buddy. Thank you guys for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio, TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. Please like, subscribe on YouTube. It really does help the channel grow. It does wonders for us. If you can get on there, we would appreciate that. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. We'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.